The pitching got it done for the Reds over the weekend, and if this trend continues, we're going to tell you why the Reds are going to take that big step forward on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds. Thanks for making Locked On Reds your first listen of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and we are free and available on all podcasting platforms. I'm your host, Stephen Offenbaker, actually in real life alongside Jeff Carr, and we are diehard baseball fans. We have a passion for the Cincinnati Reds. We have taken our love of the game, our passion for baseball, and we have turned that passion into information for you. On today's show, we are going to take a look at the Reds pitching, both the starters and the bullpen. We're going to look at some of the surprises and both pleasant and not pleasant surprises as far as the lineup goes in our second segment. And then we're going to wrap it up talking about a little bit of the ballpark experience that I've been having this weekend and how it relates to baseball's new timing rules. But probably the place to start today, Jeff, is with this pitching staff.
Yep. Yeah, the pitching staff has just absolutely been on fire, and Graham Ashcraft was the best example of it on Sunday. Beautiful stuff. And when you talk about him, when you talk about the way that Nick Lodolo pitched on Saturday, just the way that all of that goes, this is why optimism with this team begins with the big three. And I know Hunter Greene didn't have that great a start on opening day because they didn't let him pitch very long. But overall, if they get 2 out of 3 good starts from these three guys every time out, you'll take that to the bank every single day.
Absolutely. And let's be clear. Bad Hunter Greene on opening day struck out 8 guys in 3 innings.
Right.
I mean, we're not talking about a guy that got shelled.
Right.
I think
Just
the
threw
Reds
too many pitches.
Correct. I think the Reds missed an opportunity to let him power through, and it might have been a little bit of a different conversation if he had been allowed to finish that last inning that he was in. But then, Nick Lodolo, in his first start of the season, even though the Reds won that game, he didn't look 100% dialed in all of the time throughout that game. There were a couple moments in that game where he seemed to falter a little bit and was able to rein it back in. And then enter Graham Ashcraft, who once again wants to remind everybody that he pitches for this team as well. We've talked about him almost always as like the third guy, almost always as it's Hunter and Nick Lodolo. And Graham Ashcraft, he's pretty good too. And,
Exactly.
and Graham Ashcraft would like a word. First Reds pitcher to go 7 innings this season. I think it took 30 to 40 games last year before any of the Red starters got this deep into a ball game. He managed his pitches effectively. He didn't waste a lot of pitches. So you could tell early on that as long as he stayed dialed in, he was going to go deep in the game, which, then doesn't expose the bullpen as much. And then when you do get to the bullpen, they've actually performed pretty well as on top of the starters.
Yeah. When you look at what they had done, especially on Sunday, as opposed to where they were at on opening day, they were super efficient. Like I was looking at the pitch counts for everybody. Even Graham Ashcraft over 7 innings only threw 95 pitches. And that's where, where David Bell was treating Hunter Greene with kid gloves because he threw 83 and he didn't even get through, 7 outs. So that was kind of a bit of a bummer from that standpoint. But when you look at Graham Ashcraft's outing and then Alex Young, Derek Law, and Alexis Diaz, the way that those dudes pitched was phenomenal. And, Steve, I did some looking because this is why I'm on this show. This is why I talk about Reds baseball, because I love the math, right? I do the numbers. I calculate and no, but for some reason my mind went here today.
Right.
When I look at this, if you get 2 out of 3 good starts from Hunter Greene, Nick Lodolo, and Graham Ashcraft.
So to clarify what you're saying there,
yes,
in that series of 3, or are you talking about their individual starts? If their individual starts, or does it matter how we're
I think in
the
series of 3, if we're
series of 3, so one trip through the rotation, those 3 guys.
Yes.
Okay.
As we turn over the rotation each time, and these guys are healthy. But if you get 2 out of 3 good starts from these guys each time out, that's going to be a little bit over 90. That's like 97 games that you're talking about from these 3 starters. assuming that they're healthy all year, which that's also kind of a little bit of an if. But if they're healthy and we get 2 out of 3 good starts every time and the Reds are able to support them, you're talking about 62 wins. Now, I know you're like, oh my gosh, that is like 1,000 what ifs. And I'm not even really sure how your mind connected all of these dots. Well, number one, I am an optimist. So that's where this all stemmed from. But think about this. 2 out of 3 starts from these guys is not that far-fetched. They're going to struggle, but they're also going to pitch very well, like what Graham Ashcraft did on Sunday.
And what I'm hearing is the Reds only have to win 4 games that are started by Luis Cesar, Connor Overton for me to hit on my over, baby. Exactly. That's what I'm hearing.
Exactly. And whoever else comes behind those guys when you're talking about Brandon Williamson or Levi Stout and all that good stuff. So yes, the point of this mental exercise that I had after the game was there's not as much pressure on the 4 and 5 spots as we think there is. Like, I think we think these guys coming out every 5th day is just going to be so detrimental to this team. 4th and 5th starters literally got to be successful maybe 25 to 30% of the time for this team to hit their over.
And if they're actually better than that, let's just say 50% of the time, it could be where we've talked about them maybe not getting to the point of being in contention for that final wild card spot, but in conversation and relevant through September, which I think would go a long way in helping to build the confidence of these young players, would go a long way in helping this team to gel together and would really set things up nicely for what we've been talking about all along, which is an actual legitimate playoff run in 2024.
And sure, after 3 games, this seems like a bit of a leap, but
we're in first place. What are you talking about?
We're in first place. We're in first place. And you know what? Another good reason why this team has played so well against the Pirates in that opening series was the bullpen. Shout out to the bullpen. Like, I get it. Fernando Cruz on opening day didn't look all that great coming in the 4th inning. But again, that's a little bit earlier than he expected to be in the game. That's a little bit earlier than David Bell wanted to go to the bullpen. And they didn't blow up as bad as I think they probably could have. So when you put that all together, and a couple of stats that I got from this, if you take out Fernando Cruz, the Reds have allowed no inherited runners to score.
And I would like to remind you that when I released my bullpen, Fernando Cruz was not in it. So I was right. Sorry.
And I think he's going to bounce back.
I hope so.
I do.
But you talk about a couple of these guys. First off, it was nice to see Alexis Diaz trying out his intro music down at Great American Ballpark with the trumpets. It's not quite his brother's intro, but he's trying. Good on him. I want to talk about Alex Young for a second, because if you just look at the box score from yesterday's game at Great American Ballpark, it looks like he came in and struggled and was pretty ineffective. He only pitched a 1/3 of an inning and gave up a couple hits. I want to tell you that both of those hits were probably homer scoring from the home scorer to not saddle the guys with errors, because the first one that dropped between the trio of Will Benson,
Benson,
and India and Jason Vossler.
Yeah.
It dropped between the 3 of them, and it should have been caught. It should have been caught. Yeah. I think that was clearly a case of some guys that haven't played a whole lot of games together, don't have a good feel for each other yet, and nobody really took charge in that moment. Right. I think that's what happened there. Then the little dinker to left field probably should have been caught too. I mean, Fraley was running a long way to get there, but I think it probably should have been caught as well. So scoring it as a hit, that one could have gone either way, but Alex Young was not as bad as the box score would seem to indicate. And then Derek Law, who you've been impressed with.
I've been very impressed with Derek Law so far, and I get it. It's only 2 appearances, but he's got 3 inherited runners total in his 2 appearances, has kept them all on base. And kind of like you mentioned, the just crazy luck that the Reds had in that situation with Alex Young, he comes in to mop up for that. And what's he do? He mops up. Pirates don't score at all. And with the way that the bats were playing on Sunday, they absolutely needed the bullpen to be perfect. And Derek Law was perfect in that instance. And I'm looking forward to seeing more from him, because I felt like we didn't see that much from him last year. So for us to say one way that, like, I think neither you or I were impressed with what we saw from Derek Law in 2022. But if this continues, this is what we want in a bullpen. We want guys to come in, throw strikes, and keep everybody on base.
Yeah, I don't need everybody to be Alexis Diaz. I mean, it'd be great. No, look, it'd be great if everybody was Alexis Diaz, but we don't need everybody to be that way. We need guys that can come in the middle innings and just not make things worse and get you to the back end of the bullpen that can shut the other team down. That's what they're doing so far. And if this is how they're going to pitch, if this is what they're going to do, the Reds can go a little bit farther than we may have initially thought when we projected them out for 2023.
Exactly. And middle relief, hold. You just want them to get hold. Speaking of holds, we're going to play a game of buy, sell, or hold coming up here in just a minute, because the lineup did just enough, which is all they will ever need to do this year. Coming up, we'll talk about what we are buying from this lineup's performances, what we are selling, and what we're holding on to. Before we get to that, though, I want to tell you about one of today's sponsors, and that is the Ultimate GM app. I'm really excited about our new sponsorship with these guys because I've been playing this game. It's a very addicting game. Wherever you download it on your phone, you don't need an internet connection, and you can set up your own franchise. You literally control everything, where you were talking about trading players, signing players, coaching staffs, ticket prices, concession price, all of this different stuff. And you can take a team from the bottom to the top of the league. Now, when it comes to my team,
did you get fired yet?
Not yet. I think I might be skirting that line, but not yet. We're getting there, but it's fun because they give you these scenarios where you're picking up a team that is just in shambles, and you're trying to basically build it out of nothing. So it's a really challenging game. If you ever played any other type of baseball game and you play like the Dynasty mode or something, this is that mode. It's just on your phone, and you can play it whenever you want to. Pick it up, set it down, play as you need. Most of the time I end up playing it too long. But anyway, it's the Ultimate Baseball GM app. Check it out at probaseballgm.com today, or find it in the App Store or the Google Play Store. And if you're watching here on YouTube, right here, I almost pointed to it right the first time, the QR code, scan that, and you can download it today. And in the game store, make sure you type the promo code Locked On to get a 100% free boost to your franchise. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM, start your dynasty today. Coming up tomorrow, coming up later today, Steve and I have a conversation coming up because we're going to tell you why the Cubs might be the most interesting team that the Reds play all year long. Or at least that's where I'm thinking about with this team, because they're an interesting team. But let's get back to what the Reds did in this weekend, Steve, because the pitching was awesome and the hitting did exactly what it needed to do.
And they were fun to watch too. I've been at the ballpark this whole weekend, and they look better than they looked last year. Even the guys that were here last year and have carried over, everybody looks a little looser. Everybody looks a little more comfortable. I think there really has been something to that whole locker room chemistry conversation that we've had and that others have had, because they really look like they're having a good time right now.
Well, and when you look at the 2 wins that the Reds had, and I know that we had some questions on opening day about a few things, but the 2 wins that they had on Saturday and Sunday were complete performances. You got what you needed from the bats, what you needed from the gloves, and what you needed from the pitching. And it all kind of started for me because, I mean, when you're looking at how this team pitches, the lineup doesn't have to do a whole lot. And it starts with Jake Fraley. Jake Fraley has been absolutely phenomenal in these first 3 games. And now I know that he hit a home run. He's one of the first guys. He wasn't the first guy, but he's one of the first guys to get the Viking helmet and the cape, which we'll talk about that here in a minute. He
inspired the Viking helmet.
And he inspired it, yes. But Rake Fraley has been going off. Now, it's only 3 games into this season, and we saw a little bit last year, but not a ton. Based on what you've seen from Jake Fraley, are you buying what you've seen? Are you selling what you're seeing? Or are you holding and you're going to wait?
I think I'm buying on Jake Fraley. I liked that he was in the lineup against a left-hander today. I like, and he wasn't absolutely destroying the ball, but, he was able to put it in play. He's able to move runners over a couple of times. So I'm buying on him. I think that, I've talked about this in the offseason and last season when it came up, Jeff. He's been very open about that minor league rehab stint that he did in Louisville and taking the time to not only get his body right, but get his mind right. And he came back from that a different dude.
Yeah.
And I think that that's who he still is. He is still that guy that's kind of locked in and comfortable with himself and comfortable in his skin. And I think that's translating into this performance that we're seeing. And I think that's going to continue, and he's going to just get better.
I know that we're guilty of saying this, and I've seen plenty of folks talking about this on Twitter. If I'm Jake Fraley and I'm hearing all of this stuff about, yeah, he looks like a fine fourth outfielder on a good team, that motivates me. That's something that gets me fired up, and I'm with you. I'm kind of buying this from Jake Fraley. I definitely want to see more from him against left-handed pitching, because what we know of his career so far, he's not very good against lefties. But if they continue to give him these opportunities, which on a team that's carrying 3 catchers, and it's going to ask a lot more of its outfielders that hit from the left side of the plate, I think we're going to see that. And he's got the power, he's got the speed, he can field, he can throw. I think that there is enough there to keep me interested, and definitely want to see him play every day, if not almost every day. Now, something else happened yesterday, in that we had a power surge from a guy who doesn't have a lot of power, at least not in his career profile, and that is TJ Friedl. TJ Friedl is an interesting on-base guy. He can put them where they ain't. We talked about the bunt off air, that crazy chip shot that had the backspin.
Died. It was beautiful.
I mean, that's the closest to the pin shot, right? Like
It was exactly what it was.
He's going to win that competition with that bunt. But when it comes to TJ Friedl and the power, are you going to buy, sell, or hold that?
I think I'm in a holding pattern on TJ Friedl right now, because I'm not really sure who he is yet. I'm not sure if he's going to be a slap hitter kind of guy that will lay you down a bunt and speed up the line. I'm not sure if this power is something that is going to be a staying situation. I don't know. It was nice to see that lefty on lefty crime, by the way.
Yes.
He hit that home run off a left-handed pitcher. So I'm cautiously optimistic with him, but I think I'm still on hold. He's going to have to show me a little bit more for a longer period of time for me to really be able to say if I'm all in on him or not.
I feel like I want to buy it, but I'm going to hold it, because I'm nowhere near selling it, because there's something about TJ Friedl. He's a guy that I don't necessarily know that we disregarded him this offseason, but we kind of looked at him as he might actually be on the bubble, as opposed to being an everyday player. And now he's been playing, all weekend long, and that's been nice to see. And he's not necessarily had the best of results so far, but he's had a couple of nice, at bats and a couple of nice moments. But overall, I do want to continue to see more from him, because he was not a prospect when he was called up. He was just kind of like, let's see what we can get out of him in the outfield. Maybe he'll give us something, maybe not. If not, it's not going to really hurt us at this point. And he's just continuing to show a little something. And we've been, shouted out by a couple of people in the comments section and on Twitter that he's actually not all that bad against left-handed pitching. So if we can continue to see this kind of thing, we might be onto something. This next
one's gonna hurt you.
This next one hurts, because I've already been approached about this. I think maybe accosted is the right word, but Will Benson hasn't had the greatest start. I will definitely say that. I mean, he had a golden sombrero on opening day. He had
Still
2 more
over.
strikeouts yesterday. So yeah, he's over. Is he not as good as I have been saying, buy, sell, or hold?
First off, I'm squarely in the hold campaign on him. I think he has all the tools to be really good.
Yeah.
And he needs more time. It's a tremendous overreaction from anybody that says, I've seen enough.
Yeah.
Well, you've seen 2 games.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I mean, in one of those games, Tyler Stevenson had the same performance as Will Benson.
Exactly.
So if you're going to drop Will Benson for that performance, well, then you got to send Tyler Stevenson packing as well. And I don't think there's anybody in their right mind that wants to do that. So for me, we're definitely in a holding pattern on Will Benson. I will tell you, watching his at-bats pretty up close yesterday, he looks to me like a gentleman that is pressing. He is trying really hard to turn it on, and that translates into the performance. He did sting a ball that it was launched hard, but it was right at a guy. You just got to hit it where they ain't, and he hasn't quite got that down yet. The hits will start falling. That's going to come. And he made good contact on that particular pitch. So I think I think it's way too early to push the panic button.
It's definitely not fair to compare anybody to Joey Votto, but I wanted to start it off by saying that because Joey Votto has never been a fast starter. And Joey Votto has always been a good hitter and one of the best that this franchise has ever seen. So I feel like if you can be patient for Joey, you can be patient for Will Benson. And definitely 2 games is not enough to know anything about anyone. But when it comes to a guy like Will Benson, I agree about the pressing thing. And it's probably partially our fault. We've gotten people really excited about this guy, and you know, our friend Mo Egger over at ESPN 1530 is in the camp as well as of loving him and being really excited about him. So people have been hearing ever since the Reds got him that if he plays every day, he could get 40-40 or 30-30 or something like that. And so he's probably thinking, I got to do that right now. I got to do it today. And you're just not going to do that. So just start having a good day. Get a hit tomorrow. Get a couple hits, maybe get a steal on Tuesday, you know, see what happens. But I firmly believe this guy's got all the talent in the world that he can actually come back and do that. But this next one, this is an obvious, and before I even ask the question, I'm going to tell you my answer because buy, sell, or hold the Viking helmet and cape, and I'm buying this all the way. I'm absolutely love it.
I'm buying it too. Listen, from where I was sitting today, I was looking directly down the row in the Reds dugout, right? And they were having so much fun.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt anybody.
Oh.
It doesn't rile up the opposing team. They don't care. Everybody in baseball is kind of doing something like this. And at the end of the day, if it keeps the team loose, if it keeps them happy and it helps them relax, that's going to translate into a better performance. Now, if you're sitting at home and the Viking helmet and the cape is just the last straw for you, if that's just the thing that pushes you over the top with this team, then I think you've got bigger problems than the Viking cape.
Yeah, I think so.
This is just something fun that doesn't impact the game. And listen, they're not asking anybody outside of the dugout to wear the Viking cape. You don't have to put it on to get into Great American Ballpark.
No.
So it's something fun for them. And let's just not outlaw fun all the time. It's fun. They're having fun.
It's a game. It's fun. Just have fun. That's what it is. It's just fun. I told this to you off the air, and I firmly back this up. There's no empirical evidence to back this up. I didn't do any sort of mathematical research for this one. But teams that do this kind of stuff are more successful across all sports. I think of Miami, the University of Miami down in Florida, since, you know, we're up in Ohio, we have Miami, Ohio. But the Hurricanes, they had the turnover chain. And that year that they started that team was just better. That team, there were people that were asking, is the U back? Which I don't think the U will ever be back because nobody will ever be as good as that was. But when you're also looking at, you know, I look at the Bearcats and you bang the drum whenever you score the touchdown, the year that they went to the college football playoff, just different things like that. When you can zap somebody out of the game for a half a second and let them enjoy a moment, then I think that there's something to that. And I love this. I want them to continue it all year long. I want to be talking about, and maybe we'll start a statistical thing about, you know, Viking helmets, which obviously is just home runs, but, you know, just who puts it on the most. I would love to see that because that's amazing.
And, you know, this is the equivalent of a touchdown celebration.
Yeah.
This is what it is. And nobody loses their mind over the touchdown celebration. So let's everybody kind of take a
Still breath. Getting everybody there on the bat flips.
I've seen some people super worked up on Twitter about the Viking helmet. Let's let the guys have a little bit of fun. But listen, Jeff, I got to live the high life at Great American Ballpark yesterday. I want to tell you, I need a raise because I could get used to that kind of treatment. Coming up,
I haven't sat there yet.
Coming up, I'm going to tell you all about my experience and why the new rules as far as timing in Major League Baseball had an interesting effect on my overall ballpark experience this weekend down at Great American Ballpark. But before I get to that, I do want to take a minute to shout out the sponsor of today's podcast. That is Built Bar. We all know that we have favorite Built Bars. For Jeff, it's anything that ends in the word puff. For me, it's the churro and the cherry barcia. Both of those are my favorites. I keep them stashed in my locker at work, and I can't tell you guys enough how good these things are. They have amazing statistics. They're jam-packed with protein, in most cases about 17 grams of protein. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. They taste so good that you think you're kind of cheating on your diet, that I am going back on the second I hit the ground in Hawaii, because man. And these will help you accomplish your health goals, because they have only 4 grams of sugar. So if you're doing keto, you can eat these things. If you're just trying to get a good protein bar, you want to eat these things. If you're just looking for a snack, I mean, it doesn't have to be all health goal centered. You can just dig into a Built Bar, because it's like eating a candy bar. You're going to feel like you just had something like a Snickers, or it's going to do it.
Absolutely.
So you can get Built Bars a couple different ways. We've been telling you for years, you can head to built.com and place your order that way. You can head over to Sam's Club and get 13 box bars over there. And you can head to Walmart and get I think it's a 4-bar variety pack over at the Walmart. They're all kind of in the pharmacy area around the other health foods. Like the protein powders and et cetera, et cetera. Right. You can find them there. So however you get your Built Bars, just make sure you go and get your Built Bars, because you are going to thank me later. All right. You can follow the show on all podcasting platforms, folks. If you haven't clicked subscribe yet, what are you waiting for? If you're on YouTube, click subscribe. Also, click notification bell there, because we occasionally just jump on randomly and go live. It'll let you know. We're posting a bonus episode later today. It'll let you know. You'll never miss an episode. In between shows, you can follow us on Twitter. You can follow Jeff. He's at Jeff Carr. That's Jeff with 3 Fs, because I'll tell him to his face, spelling has always been hard for him. You can follow me at S. Offenbaker. That's with 2 Fs. And you can follow the show at Locked On Reds. There are no Fs in that one at all. All right, let's talk about living the high life a little bit, Jeff.
Because I want to hear about this.
I wandered into the Diamonds, and I didn't wander.
No usher turned you around.
I had tickets. Now let me tell you, you got to get through 3 checkpoints to get to that place. So you got to ride the elevator down. It's the same elevator that you take up for like the Boone County Press Club and to the announcers' booths. Same elevator, but you go down. So you go down,
seen this one,
and you get off the elevator, and it's this schwanky entrance with like all the ushers lined up outside. You got to scan your tickets again. So you got to show your tickets at the elevator. You got to show your tickets to get in, and then you got to show your tickets when you get to the usher to get to your seat. Now, they replaced the seats in the Diamond Club. They're not the big cushy chairs anymore. They're kind of, think like a combination like beach/pool kind of chair. They're mesh, but they are wider than the seats in the regular part of the ballpark, and they're comfortable. So get in there, walk into the Diamond Club. They've got this buffet of food all spread out everywhere. They've got a station over here that's doing steak and eggs for breakfast and like cooking the steak up in front of you and chopping it up and cooking it to order, basically. Nice. Tons and tons of food, open bar. And this is all leading up to the first pitch. So you get in there, you pig out, get a couple of drinks, get there as soon as the gates open if you guys treat yourself to Diamond seats. So get there, you do all that, you grab a drink to go, head out to your seats. Get out to your seats. There's people that work your section. They take food orders from you throughout the game. They bring you drinks. You don't have to move. And this was important because I want to relate this back to how the new timing rules impacted this experience. Now, as far as sitting there in the field, I mean, I could hear, Tyler Stevenson talking to the umpire, and I could hear, when David Bell came out
to anybody?
Question. I really didn't. I was like kind of locked in, waved at Tyler. I don't know if he recognized me or not because there's tons of people around, but
sure.
But, it was just so close and it was so good. And as I was saying in the last segment, from my seat, if I just turn my head, I'm looking into the Reds dugout directly down the row where they're doing the home run celebration. So it was really cool. Here's the impact for me, though. I love the new timing rules when I'm at home.
Yeah.
When I'm sitting on my couch and the commercial pops on, I can go grab a beer, I can go grab a drink, I can hit the bathroom, be back, miss nothing. When you're in the ballpark, though, if you want to go to the bathroom, if you want to go get something to eat, if you want to go get something to drink, you're going to miss a half inning.
Yeah.
Or more, depending on the lines.
And that's in the diamond seats where you're not dealing with everyone else on the concourse.
If you have to go to the concourse, you're going to miss an inning of play. And for these seats, for the diamond seats, they're not cheap. I mean, I really kind of treated myself. I don't know if I'll ever buy a ticket in there again just because they cost so much. But, for me, it's like that's the kind of experience I want to kind of draw out a little bit and enjoy and hang out. And this game was over in 2.5 hours. Bye. See you later. I don't feel like I necessarily was able to get my money's worth. And, I'm in Handlebar tonight.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to kind of feel the same. I think that I'm going to feel rushed in enjoying my experience because of how fast the game goes by, being able to partake of the things that you want to partake of by buying those seats. That's why you buy those seats, right? So
I was just thinking about, so I got the chance to sit in the handlebar a couple of years ago, and I was late to the game because
Taylor Swift
of a concert. Yes. It wasn't Taylor Swift. It was Carrie Underwood. I will never forgive her for it. She doesn't even know. But I was late to that game because of the concert. And we got there in like the 4th inning. So I felt like, all right, I got to get all the food on the buffet and get going right away. I can't imagine what that would be like with the new rules. And I'm not saying, I'm not getting this from you either. I don't think this is what you're saying, but we're not saying that we don't like the new rules because of that. It's just, you almost have to prepare yourself for, all right, when I go to the ballpark, I got to have a little bit of a plan, because if I wander onto the concourse, I'm going to miss some time in the game. It's just, there's not going to be a situation where you don't miss something. Like I missed Spencer Steer's home run on opening day because I went up onto the concourse to use the restroom and go grab another hot dog.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think the Reds are already trying to make some adjustments. If you haven't heard or didn't notice, they did open the gates sooner. They are opening the gates in such a time now that you can see both teams batting practice. That's just their standard practice for this season. That's what they're going to do. I think part of that is to get people in the ballpark sooner and recover some of what they're going to lose. They're going to lose money. Basically, this timing rule is going to cost them money, because you're not going to be able to make as many trips to beverage concessions, etc., as you were in the past.
Sure.
So I think there's some adjustments. Maybe we're going to see a return of the guys working the aisles and selling things, so you don't have to get up and leave your seat.
I don't know what they're waiting for.
So the adjustments are going to have to be made. I'm interested to see how the Reds handle this. I think when the first concessions report comes out and there's a dip because people just aren't wanting to miss the game,
it's obvious.
That will fuel them to make some changes. And for me, the easiest fix is to put vendors back in the aisles and have them walking things around.
Well, and that was something that I was thinking about too, from the time standpoint, the idea that on opening day, when nobody could hit the strike zone, or, there's so many different 3-2 counts with every other batter for both teams, and that game still only went 3 hours because of the pitch clock. I felt like without the pitch clock, that's the kind of game that goes 4 hours. That's the kind of game where they're making hand over fist on concessions, and which they they ran out of a bunch of stuff anyway on opening day because there were so many people there. But the idea that they can just continue with this shorter clock, they're going to have to change some things. So I like that. And I hope they bring back the guys in the aisle.
I think that's the quickest, easiest fix to this. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I think, and I'm interested for what you all think. If you were out at the ballpark for this first series, drop in the comments and share your experience with how you feel the timing rules impacted your experience. Maybe it's just me, because everyone knows how you and I liked baseball at that ballpark, and this impacts that a little bit. Like if you're walking from A to B, you're going to miss something. And I don't like to miss things when I go to the ballpark.
This does increase the value of the bow tie bar, because if you could just turn around, grab a beer, and then turn right.
I think that's going to be an area that we're going to have to fight our way into if once the people figure out that thing you just said.
That's right. We need to keep that.
We're going to delete
Never
that.
mind. We didn't say that. Yeah, we didn't say
we're going to edit that out.
That's going to be where we end today's podcast, because we're giving up too much information. All right. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for listening to today's Locked On Reds. Coming up later today, I did it again. We're going to talk about why the Cubs are the most interesting team that the Reds will face this season, and why you should be watching this series. But now, check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball, because Matt and Dom will help you win your league daily by giving you the best waiver wire pickups and the best kind of moves you can make to make your team the best in your league. That's Locked On Fantasy Baseball, just like Locked On Reds. It's free and available on all platforms. All right, Steve, we're in first place after the first series of the season.
Going to the World Series.
This is going to continue. Okay, maybe not. I don't want to jinx it, but hey, as the season goes along, what can people expect from you?
We're going to continue to We're going to continue to monitor the minor leagues. We're going to continue to watch for the rumors, the news, the transactions. We're going to report all of that information right here to keep you locked on Reds every single day.
Yeah.